Well, good morning, and thank you very much, Peter. JPMorgan Chase has been a wonderful supporter and collaborator with us on global cities. And as you can hear, Peter especially has been a passionate voice for cities. And I'm also grateful that he's been a consistent champion of Brookings, bringing its independent research to advance the public good. So we are here today to reflect on and build on 5 years of a project that many of you in this room know well, the Global Cities Initiative. Now, we at Brookings and many of you've burned a lot of airplane miles, maybe you've earned some elite airline statuses as a result of your participation in GCI. So I want to thank you for taking the time to come here to Washington. The first time, as Peter said, that we've been able to bring together leaders from across the Global Cities Network. Nearly 40 U.S. and international cities are here today, as well as other fellow travelers who have participated in this important work. Now, I have to admit, especially watching that video, that I am simply humbled by the sea change that has occurred as a result of GCI. Brookings scholars brought you research, roundtables, advice, peer-to-peer learning opportunities, and in turn, you have changed the field of urban practice. Today, global trade has become an essential part of the regional economic DNA. The irony now is that all this energy and progress comes amidst a new environment. Growing skepticism about global trade, new immigrants, refugees, and a slow-growing world economy. So this summit comes at an important inflection point. How can cities deepen their efforts to be globally engaged and competitive while addressing head-on the disparities and negative consequences that come with greater global integration, the issues that Peter just talked about this morning? Now, to set the conversation, we released a new book and 2 new reports. We're a think tank. The book, Global Cities, A Short History, is written by Brookings expert and tireless globetrotter Greg Clark. It traces the origins and past of world cities throughout time and their challenges today. The Making of Global Cities is a new report that I have co-authored with Rachel Barker and Merrick Gutman. It shares stories about how cities within the GCI network have adopted new approaches to becoming more global. And Redefining Global Cities, which is authored by my colleagues Jesus Trujillo and Joe Perilla, introduces a new typology of global cities based on extensive quantitative analysis of the largest metropolitan economies in the world. And these reports are available for you outside this room. This morning, I'm going to talk about 3 things that build off this body of work. First, I'm going to discuss Brookings' journey to understanding what it means to be a global city. Second, I'll outline 7 types of global cities that reflect the different paths and assets to achieving global prosperity. Third, I'll describe how the new typology of cities can inform future strategies to improve global growth and opportunity. My presentation will be followed by 2 panel discussions that will further explore what's next for global cities. So to begin, what makes a global city? Global cities are not a new concept. Greg's book traces the roots of global cities back to the beginning of civilization. He finds that trade is a defining feature of global cities. For millennia, cities have been focal points for the exchange of goods, ideas, capital, and people. But our story, as it relates to global cities, it's a little shorter than Greg's short history. Brookings Metro began studying global cities during the Great Recession, as Peter said. By 2009, the U.S. economy was in free fall, losing nearly 7.5 million jobs in just 2 years. Consumer demand was down, business spending was down. What was going to be the source of economic growth going forward? The answer was not to repeat the mistakes of the past, an economy driven by debt, consumption, and real estate. With the rise of the global middle class, we at Brookings realized that it was time for cities to embrace exports as an important ingredient for long-term, high-quality economic growth. So Brookings began by examining the role that export played in the U.S. metropolitan economies. Our report, Export Nation, provided first-ever metro-level data on exports. Around the same time, President Obama introduced the National Export Initiative, challenging us to double Americans' exports by 2014. Shortly thereafter, we created what we called the Metropolitan Export Initiative, which sought to tackle the president's challenge from the bottom up. So through MEI, we worked with leaders in 4 cities, Los Angeles, Portland, Syracuse, Minneapolis, St. Paul, to apply this new research and pilot new strategies for metro-led export growth. Their experience led to our 10 steps guide for export planning for other cities. We were then pleased to find a partner in JPMorgan Chase, who understood the power of cities to spur national economic recovery. With the support of JPMorgan Chase, we launched the Global Cities Initiative, which took this nascent idea to scale, broadening its reach to dozens of cities in the US and around the world. And so over the past 5 years, the Global City Initiative has convened leaders across 6 continents, from Jacksonville to Johannesburg, Santiago to Stockholm, Barcelona to Baltimore. We have helped cities raise awareness about the importance of global trade and help them design strategies to bolster global competitiveness. In time, though, we realized that being a global city wasn't simply about exports or FDI. What cities needed to trade was innovation to create world-class products and services, a skilled workforce to deliver those solutions, and modern infrastructure to connect business travelers and goods to markets across the globe. Today, the work to deliver global growth and opportunity remains urgent. Since 2009, jobs and productivity have grown, surpassing their pre-recession levels, but that growth remains sluggish. Meanwhile, wages have eroded for most Americans. Furthermore, the 3 forces that gave rise to global cities, they're also challenging cities' path to inclusive growth. On urbanization, cities are increasingly the places where global growth and economic opportunity reside. Back in 1950, fewer than 30% of the world's residents lived in cities. By 2014, more than half of the world's population lived in urban areas, and that share is expected to grow in the decades to come. Now, urbanization has led to the rise of the global middle class. It's connected rural workers to jobs. It has raised living standards worldwide. However, how we manage urbanization will shape our ability to create opportunity for all. Urban infrastructure and housing supply often struggle to keep up with the influx of new migrants. 880 million people, or 30% of all urban residents in developing countries, live in informal housing. In the developed world, skyrocketing housing costs are burdening low and middle income residents. Now, globalization continues to move full speed ahead. It's true that the growth of global trade has slowed in the past couple of years, but over the long run, cross-border flow of goods, capital, and services have exploded and now accounts to about 39% of global GDP. Now, international trade benefits consumers worldwide by lowering the cost of goods and services and increasing the availability of new products. It also opens new markets for firms, allowing companies to grow and pay higher wages. But as this election cycle has reminded us, not all people and places are equally benefiting from global trade. David Autor at MIT estimates that 2.4 million jobs, including 1 million manufacturing jobs, were lost in the United States in recent years due to import competition from China. So cities must explicitly help impacted communities and industries adjust and succeed. Finally, technology. Now, in recent decades, technology has spurred the formation of global supply chains. It's allowed connected businesses to connect to each other and to consumers worldwide. But today, explosive new technologies from cloud computing, robotics, autonomous vehicles, and the Internet of Things is generating massive new value in industries and creating good jobs in cities. But new technologies, they can also destroy firms, destroy value, displace workers. And as a recent McKinsey report found, 60% of all occupations are at risk or partial risk of complete automation. Meanwhile, the rise of the gig economy is complicating the definition of stable full-time employment. So, what makes a global city? Ultimately, it means being a globally competitive city. GCI is no longer just a response to the Great Recession, but it is a recognition now that our cities must constantly adapt their policies, their institutions in the face of rapid change so they can create growth and opportunity for our citizenry. Now, to adapt effectively, cities must embrace the core drivers and the enablers of competitiveness. Traded sectors, every metropolitan area relies on a set of distinctive industries, especially advanced industries, that grow through trade, bringing wealth and income into a region. Innovation, such as applied research capabilities, new technologies, and a culture of entrepreneurship allows these traded sectors to grow. And talent. These industries also need a community that steadily produces, attracts, and retains workers with skills that can power these sectors. Modern infrastructure and good governance enable competitive regional economies. They better connect workers, suppliers, and customers together, and they create a climate of transparency and trust in civic and government problem solving. So this brings me to my second point. All cities are global, but not in the same way. Our new report defines 7 types of global cities today based on how they perform on these core drivers and enablers of global competitiveness. Now, to create this typology, we studied the world's 123 largest metropolitan economies, nearly all of which have a GDP exceeding $100 billion. These cities are economically significant, home to just 13% of the world's population, but they generate 1/3 of the world's economic output. We then assessed how these cities performed on 3 categories of indicators: their economic characteristics, including the size of their economy, their industry mix, and their competitiveness factors. That assessment ultimately revealed 7 types of global cities, each with their own distinctive roles in the global economy and pathways to future growth and prosperity. So let's take a look at each of these 7 city types in turn. First is global giants, including London, Paris, and Tokyo. These represent the traditional notion of a global city. These are large, highly sophisticated financial hubs of the world economy. Global giants are set apart by the massive size of their economies and their extensive global connectivity. New York, with a GDP of nearly $1.5 trillion and 192 million air travelers annually, is truly at the center of the world economy. Second, Asian anchors, including Hong Kong, Beijing, and Seoul, serve as leading economic centers for the fastest growing continent in the world. Now, what makes this type most distinct is that they outpace all other cities on foreign investment. With their stable governance and the world's most modern infrastructure systems, Asian anchors are where international businesses go to establish operations in Asia. So Singapore is a good example of an Asian anchor. This city-state captured nearly $82 billion of foreign direct investment in 2015, the most among all global metros. And it has the fastest internet download speeds in the world. Next up are emerging gateways, including Mumbai, Rio, and Santiago. They offer entry points into their nation's economies. These 28 financial and political capitals have traded sectors that are on average 4 times more productive than their nation's average, but yet compared to other global cities, they often fall behind on innovation. So Mexico City is an emerging gateway. It has a very productive traded sector, but only 6.2% of its research papers are frequently cited, ranking just 105th out of the 123 global cities. Fourth, factory China, including Chengdu, Nantong, and Guangzhou, represent China's major manufacturing hubs. These cities are the fastest growing economies in the world, but they are heavily dependent on production, and they have limited talent pools and innovative assets. Hefei is emblematic of a factory China metro. Its economy has grown an astonishing 15% each year since 2000, ranking first among all global cities. Yet only 12% of its adult population holds a college degree, placing the city near bottom on this score. Fifth, knowledge capitals, including Boston, San Francisco, and Stockholm. These are economies that are bolstered by elite research institutions and industries which together create cutting-edge products and services. These cities often have an extremely well-educated and productive workforce and boast some of the highest rates of scientific research, patents, and venture capital in the world. San Diego is a knowledge capital. Its output per worker is 11th highest among the 123 metros, and it produces an average of over 5 patents per 1,000 persons each year, second best among all global cities. Next, American middleweights, including Charlotte, Phoenix, and Kansas City. These are mid-sized American metros, many of which have participated in the Global Cities Initiative. These cities are still trying to find their footing in the global economy, but they have valuable economic assets. Each maintain at least one globally relevant export industry, and many have elite research institutions that attract talent and contribute to innovation. Indianapolis is a good example of an American middleweight. The metro area's traded sectors are less productive than the US average, ranking 109th out of 123 global cities, but over 14% of research papers coming out of Indy's universities are among the most cited in their field, which is 42nd best among global cities. Finally, international middleweights, including Munich, Melbourne, and Montreal, are economies that, like their American counterparts, are seeking to leverage distinctive economic assets for growth. These metros serve as gateways to smaller, developed economies and therefore have high rates of foreign investment. Unfortunately, many of these cities also have a growth challenge. So Barcelona is an example of an international middleweight. Its economy has grown only 1.2% annually since 2000, ranking it 106th out of 123 global metros. But the city is also a destination, not just for foreign travelers, but for foreign capital. With $3,400 of foreign investment per person in 2015, Barcelona ranks 8th among all global cities. Now, there are, of course, many other cities beyond these 123 that are global, including cities that are represented by people in this room. But we believe this typology helps all cities better understand how they fit into the global economy. So, what should a local leader take away from this typology? Well, first, all cities are globalizing. The world economy is hyper-connected because the firms and industries in cities are increasingly global. So the implication for metropolitan leaders is that their policies and their strategies must embrace, not reject, this economic reality. Second, cities occupy distinctive niches in the global economy. Some cities are innovation hubs, others are centers of manufacturing, some anchor the world's largest economies, others are gateways to developing countries. So cities can use this typology to find true peer groups for learning and economic exchange and to put global rankings in better context. Third, cities must continuously adapt to be globally competitive and inclusive. Metro strategies must improve a region's value add in a global supply chains while increasing the participation of people and communities in that growth. So this brings me to the final section. How can cities increase their global competitiveness and create shared prosperity? Now, our new report does compare each of these city types on key indicators of economic growth and their competitive assets. These data frame general strengths, challenges facing each type of a global city based on how they perform on each of these indicators. So I want to take a look at just a few metro areas in the Global Cities Network that are actively adapting to the unique global challenges they face. So global giants, they retain multiple advantages that have been built up over decades, as you can see from the dots on this map. These are advantages that have even been built up over centuries. Yet even global giants like London understand that no advantage lasts forever in a hyper-competitive global marketplace. Many global giants recognize that they need to continuously upgrade the competitiveness of their traded sectors, which are often middling in growth because of their sheer size. So for instance, London has been seeking to diversify its economy beyond its world-leading financial industry. Now, in the wake of Brexit, that objective is even more urgent. London Mayor Sadiq Khan has an international business program that provides mentoring and support to fast-growing London companies in technology, life sciences, and urban infrastructure to help them export and expand. Emerging gateways are rapidly reaching middle-income status in their developing countries, but on a global scale, these cities still lag their more developed peers on key measures of innovation, such as scientific research and patents. Santiago exemplifies this dynamic. The city is trying to make the transition from an economy that was once reliant on natural resources to one that generates value through knowledge and innovation. There has been a concerted effort now of both the public and private sector to support entrepreneurship, from Startup Chile to Ideas Factory, which is a unique combination of a makerspace, incubator, accelerator, and shared workspace. Santiago also recognizes the need to improve access to quality education, which, if left unaddressed, will perpetuate inequalities. American middleweights, as I mentioned before, are wealthy by global standards, but they continue to seek a new identity so they can break out on the global stage. And doing so requires strengthening their traded sectors. In Columbus, Ohio, Columbus 2020, the region's economic development organization, in coordination with the mayor's office and the business community, has launched a global trade and investment strategy. With such a diverse economy, the leaders are boosting their existing specializations by helping each become more trade intensive. They are reorienting economic development a little bit less away from business attraction and towards a stronger relationship with existing firms. Their efforts have led to a more strategic and more demand-driven approach to workforce development, export sales abroad, and inbound foreign investment. So let me close with this quote from Nobel Prize economist Joseph Stiglitz. The problem is not globalization, but how the process of globalization is being managed. The leaders that we've had the pleasure to work with are better prepared than ever to manage this process. Rather than be bystanders to global change, many of you are proactively shaping it. You know the needs of your leading industries. You know how global forces are putting pressure on them to digitize and innovate, how that translates to demand for different kinds of workers. Or you may learn about new industry opportunities that inspire you to bring different firms and sectors together to co-create new products. This newfound global awareness is empowering you to solve problems, collaborate, and create the local conditions for firms and workers to be part of global success. Indeed, there is more work we must do to ensure that global competitiveness results in opportunities for all. Now, if the last 5 years is any indication, cities will rise to the challenge and show the way. So thank you for a tremendous journey, and we look forward to more collaboration in the months and years ahead. Thank you.